Well, hello there and welcome to the bathroom of the dollhouse, where all the pontificating gets done. That's right. That means thinking, if you didn't know. For another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Just Elfers for February 23rd, the day of the viable candidate. All right, near the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the viable candidate. We have us an image of what could it be? Boom, this one's interesting one here. It looks to be some bags of laundry and a medicine ball or a basketball with laces. Who's to say? Who's to say? Now, does that speak to the day of the viable candidate? Well, maybe a viable candidate to go to the laundry. Perhaps. Now, that visual representational image aside, I just like folks to know what's going on off the camera there on the page, if you like, so not altogether all too important. Sometimes we can make connotations for why they chose that. In this case, I don't know. But that said, what is important around these parts is it's February 23rd. So if February 23rd is your birthday, wishing you a happy birthday. That's what's important around here. But if this video finds delayed, as they sometimes do, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I just want to say, I hope you had a happy birthday, if that's the circumstance. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, or more ideally, to celebrate the February 23rd birthday, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, I'd like to take a few minutes to do something around these here parts that I enjoy, and that is living up to the namesake. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to roll some dice. That's right. I don't only do so to live up to the namesake, as I said, or try to say. I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And oh my lord, folks, I rolled us another set of doubles again. I rolled some fives yesterday, I believe, and now it's a sixes. So you're going off to jail too. Oh, that's right. Maybe you can see February 22, folks, in the cell right next to you. That's right. Now, what is synchronicity? You're probably wondering. Well, my friends, a lot of times we get out in the world and we're very laser, singular focus, if you like. We got the blinders on a lot of times to what's going on around us. And as I hear it also told, the universe will put things down in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But if we got those blinders on, hey, we might not be open to seeing things the universe or the higher powers that be are putting down in our path. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help you not only take those blinders off, but maybe see the things that are coming into your path for what they are. I know you probably see a lot of things, but like I said, maybe you're just not lending them much credence. So how do we do this? Well, we need some kind of sign that's agreed upon between us and the universe. So ostensibly something we can't help but notice. That's right. Those numbers that got you into jail. That's right. You're 6 and you're 6 for a 12. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you dust off that old Yahtzee set that's hanging out in your closet there, and you rate it for a couple of your own dice, all right? And I say that because you can use these to ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. Once you've established all that, your numbers, your dice, pick a place that's near and dear to your heart to go explore, all right? I often like to use the town square as the example. Well, let's choose Main Street today, all right? You get off on the Main Street, maybe there's a nice little park there that you start from. Roll your first directional value, time limit, and you set off, all right? And maybe as you're getting down to the end of this time limit, hey, you're not really seeing much anything. Well, like I said, get those blinders off, all right? You want to start taking in everything around you like a sponge, all right? The day might also start to take on a theme. That's right. You might not just start seeing your numbers everywhere. You might start seeing the same kinds of things popping up into your life. Now, they might be hidden in certain forms of fashions. Let's take the, the laundry bags, if you like. You might start, maybe you see some old Santa decorations. He's got his old sack full of presents. Somebody's taking that down finally. Or, maybe the house got foreclosed on and then finally somebody moved in. So they take down the old decorations, if you like. Or, maybe you're just starting to see somebody throwing a medicine ball around. Maybe it's that on the nose, if you like, all right? I don't see that happening on Main Street. But who's to say maybe some sports goods store went out of business and they just so happened to find folks carrying those out. So like I said, get the blinders off, and that's just another affirmation that the universe is there with you on your path. And it could also just be something like an advertisement on the side of a bus bench. It's got some bags incorporated into it, all right? So that said, be on the lookout for themes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the bags. It could be just about anything. That's why you got to stay eagle-eyed. But maybe at the end of this first time value, hey, you know what? You're not seeing anything of note, all right? Well, just step back, take it all in stride. You're out here getting your steps in at the very least, right? Maybe you so happen to notice as you're just accepting things, hey, you just so happen to be on 66th in Maine at this point. That's right, the cross street. Okay, hey, take it as a sign you're on the right path. Roll yourself another time value. Maybe this time it takes you down 66 direct, right? Maybe end of the time value, maybe you find yourself in front of, what's this? Oh, maybe it's a laundromat. There you go. The theme of the day. You step on in there. Why? Well, because it just so happens to have maybe a 12 in the address. That's right. Your time value ended right in front of a building. It's synchronistic rather. All right, so you go in there and hey, it's just your run-of-the-mill laundromat. Who really cares, right? So there you go. You get down, you bend down to roll your dice. So what's this? Of course, people got bags, right? We be them shopping sacks or laundry bags direct, but maybe you hear a voice. You look up, and it's somebody from college. You haven't seen them in years. How about maybe they're down on their luck? No, it just turns out that their laundry machine or washing machine, well, the fuse blew on it or something, right? You guys get to catching up, and he asks you why you were rolling dice down there on the dirty floor. You know what? Show them this video, show them the dice, tell them what's going on. It's your birthday. They go, that's crazy. We share that in common. You're like, what? Yeah, maybe it just so happens to be their birthday too, all right? And you know what? They got another couple hours on the machine. Maybe they're so apt to join you on your journey here. You know what? It's just great because as I hear it told, the more people you bring in and focus on the same thing, you're more apt to manifest greater results. So you get out there, maybe you all start seeing laundry sacks and the like together. You're stacking up those coincidences, those synchronicities, if you like, and you just start rekindling the fires of a long-lost friendship. That's right. So in any event, I think you get the idea of synchronicity. Get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. See, taste, touch, smell the fresh laundry, a little bit of magic if you like, and you're apt to understand why I brought it up in the first place. All right, so since you're in jail, let's get on with your reading here. Your month is February, your day the 23rd. Your sign is 3 to 5 degrees Pisces of the Pisces I period specifically. First day of it, all right? And your quality and element is mutable water. All right, February 23rd, the day of the viable candidate. February 23 people specialize in offering not only their ideas, but also themselves as viable alternatives to less than ideal circumstances. You thought it was going somewhere else, didn't you? That's right. They are often problem solvers engaged in moving things forward in a positive direction. And once those born on this day are convinced that they are the best candidate for the job, positions of family leadership or social responsibility, they must secure that position or at least receive a fair hearing. Their arguments are usually cogent and sound as their advice, for rarely do they try to convince anyone of their views until they have done their homework thoroughly. In February 23, people are realists, down-to-earth individuals adept at sizing up a situation and placing their finger on precisely what can be improved. Unfortunately, February 23 realism may in fact be pessimism, and particularly in later life, those born on this day must beware of becoming hypercritical and even bitter. There is an undeniably dark side to February 23 people, necessitating a careful balance of their energies to avoid depression. And they must be particularly aware of falling into self-destructive patterns. In February 23, people have a solid hold on the material world, and they are not overindulgent in enjoying the luxuries of life. For them, the thrill of dealing with practicalities and everyday difficulties has to do with building on yesterday and preparing for the complexities of tomorrow. They are like a motor which, once running, keeps running. And those born on this day are happy to expand their base of operations, but will generally do so cautiously. And one reason for this success, in addition to their pragmatism, is their Kairotic sense, i.e., knowing the right time to act and when to stand pat. And those born on this day usually handle the existential dilemma well, in taking responsibility for directing their lives while accepting the laws of inevitability. When February 23 people are frustrated in one direction, they rarely backtrack, but simply choose another path. And most of the time, before embarking on Plan A, they have already considered the merits of Plan B and hold it in ready reserve. And thus those born on this day excel at offering advice to those who have simply reached a dead end and can go no further. And often they themselves or their services prone to be the viable alternative to a stalemate. And in their private lives, February 23 people must beware of adopting an all-knowing or infallible attitude and becoming complacent or unresponsive to the emotional needs of others. And they must strive to keep their minds open and tune in to the wishes of those around them. By truly valuing the opinions of others and listening quietly and non-judgmentally to their concerns, they will win friends and inspire the support of their efforts. Well, all right, this was quite the fascinating birthday breakdown. I would say it was pretty hyper-focused in how they broke things down for you. Not necessarily in the theme of the day, the viable candidate. That crept in there a little bit, but oftentimes these birthday breakdowns have been very laser focused, and they kind of bring up the theme or just a general idea, and then they laser in on it, and then they kind of expand from there. I'd say they did that in no small part here, but I feel as though they kind of rounded it out a bit more than they have been in the past few periods here. So that having been said, I'd like to provide a little bit of a commentary on the breakdown, if you like. So let me get my materials ready here, my notes, if you like, so we can dive into a little bit of an examination of the breakdown. So let's dive in, shall we? For February 23rd, the day of the viable candidate. You're specializing in not just offering your ideas, but also yourself as an alternative to less viable candidates or circumstances. And the reading claims you are problem solvers motivated to move things forward with positive intentions. And if that is the case, I'd argue you're not just viable, but probably ideal. All right? Though the way the reading began, I got the impression from offering yourself as the alternative, you may not have the so-called desire, for a position in such a regard, especially if you have to be convinced, as they said, to do as much. And I would argue this is my ideal candidate, all right? Someone who isn't necessarily hard after the job with such responsibility that's baked into it. Such motivations, I would say, those people who work hard after that job, that especially in those political spheres, boy, it tends to spell concern for oneself over the station, all right? Those folks, they're probably in it for themselves for some reason. And I would say that spells disaster in a lot of cases. But you know what? It's arguable either way. I just like folks who are more humble about it, all right? It's just more down to earth, all right? More salt to the earth, too, if you like. It's moving on. Furthermore, offering your ideas and services, it speaks to humility, all right? A quality I'd argue largely tends to be lacking in positions of power, all right? And more often than not, it's not lent the credence that it merits, okay? Or it's seen for the unassuming, or not seen for the unassuming strength it possesses. Having said that, the reading claims you're down-to-earth realists of cogent or clear and convincing thought and process, and adept at interpreting situations and what can be improved upon. Couple that to being a problem solver, I'd say it's a most choice combination, as either quality by itself is considerably valuable. But if you got both of them, forced to be reckoned with, I would argue. All right, so as it happens, however, the reading claims there is apparently an undeniable dark side to any people born on this day, all right? To say there's a risk of becoming hypercritical, cynical, or even bitter. over what the reading doesn't say. Usually there might be some kind of context baked in there, but you know what? The lives people lead, millions of different outcomes, who's to say? But this has come up in days past, so you're not alone in that regard, all right? But I suppose the reason doesn't really matter. It's just like life in general, probably, all right? Weighs you down like that perpetual machine they mentioned. I'd say balancing your energy is what's most important. That's, say, a through line theme in the book itself. Also, moderation being the other one. What else do we have here? That said, you're pragmatic individuals, and you're not overindulgent either. You get excitement from building toward your future. All right, a very profound and novel idea, I think. But it also, you have an eye for identifying when to act, they said. In addition to many other notable qualities that I would say were largely novel. They were kind of original, especially this building toward your future and getting excited by it. I don't think that's come up in the book before. You're the first, maybe the only one who's to say, still got a few birthdays left to read, but that one's all you. They said, and that eye for knowing when to act, that's huge too, though you're not the first to have gotten that. Though they did put in a Greek word that's the first that's come up, and I probably pronounced that thing wrong. But what else do they have to say? The reading warns against taking on a know-it-all attitude and getting complacent in your personal life. And here, that's a bit of a through line itself, too, all right? There's a little bit of this Capricorn carryover here, I like to call it, just now. I figured it out right now. The Capricorn carryover. Those folks like to drill down on a cause, and they just dedicate themselves to it above all else. And what falls in the back seat, maybe even the trunk of the car, if it doesn't get left out on the curb altogether, the personal life. All right. So again, another through line there. There seems to be a stark shift in your behavior once your attention shifts from work to the personal life. So beware of that, all right? Some of those Capricorn folks got warned against it because only too late in life do they realize what they've left behind, and they may end up alone, all right? So don't make that fatal mistake there. Or maybe you don't find that would be so bad. I don't know. That's up for you to decide. But that has been the breakdown. So let's turn our attention to your numbers and your planets. All right, let me get the book back centered so we can keep myself in frame a little better. Those born on the 23rd of the month are ruled by the number 5, as 2 plus 3 equals 5, and by the planet Mercury. All right, and since Mercury represents quickness of thought and change, February 23 people may find themselves likely to both overreact mentally and to change their physical surroundings with great regularity. The combination of Mercury and Neptune, as Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, indicates great sensitivity to external phenomena and a logical ability to think in universal terms. And whatever hard knocks those ruled by the number 5 receive from life typically have little lasting effect on them, as they recover quickly. And the number 23 is associated with happening, and this is particularly true for February 23 people who wish to be at the center of the action. All right. Let's say this one was highly personalized for you here. Numbers and planets tend to have a little bit of a facet of that regard. Otherwise, it was just a lot of boilerplate that was mixed in a unique way. I'd say they kind of impart the ideas there, but I know they had to have personalized it to you in that fashion. They had to find the things to pick and choose to put in there and what order to put them in. So, not to poo-poo it, they did spend some time with you there. So, in any event, let's dive back into the notes here. Number 5 in the speedy planet Mercury for quickness of thought and change, quick recovery, overcoming life's hard knocks, as well as attention to detail. All those things are pretty part and parcel for a Mercury day, all right? But they didn't put in here something that's found in the back of the book, all right? And they said there's a love of puzzles and games as well as vitality in your endeavors. So hopefully that added little facet also speaks to you there. The entry mentions overreacting mentally and changing your physical environment often. That comes up quite a bit in Mercury days, so I'm not entirely sure why they find it applies to you specifically. Though there are a few days that I've come across just kind of doing the research to make sure that was true, where it didn't pop up. So maybe it applies to you a little more than most, but again, there were a few other days that had it in there. So I don't know why it was specific to you in that regard. That said, Neptune's influence being said to cause sensitivity to external phenomena and an ability to think in logical, universal terms, it does seem to set you apart from a good deal of other Mercury-ruled individuals and other Neptune folks as well, all right? Insofar as Neptune folks tend to have their mind on / their head in the clouds versus otherwise grounded, all right? High ideals are their concerns. And I didn't necessarily see that pop up too much, if at all, in this particular breakdown. And let me tell you something, that's a bit of a pivot, a bit of a deviation on account of every other day is very committed to high ideals, all right? And so you might be a little bit of an outlier in that respect. Which is cool. That makes it a little more interesting for me, as they've been really boning in on the, honing in on, however you want to say it, on this high ideals concept and just finding different ways of relating how that's realized. So it's kind of like another one. So here we get a little bit of change up, which I appreciate. Let's see. So Neptune is also said to impart qualities of fantasy, irresistibly magnetic influence, and dissolve barriers between rigid and absolute natures. So this may also speak to your ability to garner interest for whatever particular cause it is you're driving after, all right? I just like how they related how you go after that cause, though, with humility, all right? And I think that might be a little bit of a deviation, too. That might set you apart from the others as well. So that having been said, that's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's here in the book. Once again, we can sometimes make connotations with other things that have been mentioned, maybe past periods as well. But hey, once that's done, we just leave it in the book. We don't have to take it home with us to start dealing out the cards to predict our future or however that's used. So let's dive in, see what it has to say. The fifth card of the major arcana is the Hierophant, an interpreter of sacred mysteries who is symbolic of human understanding and faith. His knowledge is esoteric, and he has an authority over things unseen. And favorable traits conferred by this card are self-assurance and insight. Unfavorable traits include moralizing, bombast, and dogmatism. All right. This one was a bit of a copy-paste job, let's face it. Pretty boilerplate standard there. Sometimes they personalize the tarot. Oftentimes, if they do, though, it's just a little button on the end of it. So nothing in particular. Nothing lost, nothing necessarily gains. Let's see if I can pick up a little bit of the slack. All right, here we go. The Hierophant, or the priest, if you like, in more conventional terms, for authority over things unseen, self-assuredness, and insight, which I would say are just a particularly modest amount of the positives one may ascribe. Considering in other people's eyes, you may also stand for the representation of instilling faith. All right, that modesty we were talking about, the Bible candidate. Which then also, in no small part, probably extends to your human understanding. All right? Beware going against seemingly modest and unassuming nature that we were talking about. It seemed to be seeded throughout the breakdown. All right? You go bombastic, or you start to moralize to folks, and you're apt to start losing those smarter-minded people who were on your side. And you may also curry a little bit too much favor with those weaker-minded folks who now won't leave your side. All right? So careful of the dogmatism. People might start to see following you like a kind of faith. All right? Maybe that's one of the drawbacks. All right? You start losing the folks you want to retain and keeping those you don't necessarily. All right, so it's also just a bad look to be moralizing to folks, right? I would argue a yes. That's right. It's kind of like those leaders that we didn't want in the office there. So that having been said, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right, those born on February 23 are likely to drive themselves too hard. They must learn to rest and relax. Also, undisturbed, full nights of sleep are crucial to their health. Therefore, a top priority should be given to making their sleep space comfortable as well as quiet. Therefore, a top priority should be given to making their... Oh, I said all that. Okay, because of their sensuous orientation, those born in this day are particularly receptive to massage and all forms of pleasurable physical stimulation. You'll have to read between the lines on that one there. The sensuality is shown in their attitude toward food as well, all right? They can make excellent cooks, capable of creating new dishes and rethinking traditional recipes. They must, however, be careful of letting their appetites run away with them and are advised to limit fat in their cooking and diet. Regular moderation, let me reread that here. Regular moderate daily exercise, rather, is recommended for February 23 people. All right. Started injecting words that weren't on the page there. That's not advisable. All right. Let's see. Let's dive back into the notes here for your health. See what I could cook up for you there. Let's see here. Likely to drive yourself too hard. All right. The reading claims learning to rest. An undisturbed full night's sleep is critical, all right? And this is perhaps the most emphasized entry for rest that I've come across in some time, okay? So maybe take note. They don't always bake this one into the process here for people that need the rest. Has come up once in a while, but not very often. And then it's usually coupled to that, making your space very comfortable, etc. So again, maybe take note. This sensuous orientation of interest, however, as nowhere else is mentioned, they haven't seen it phrased this way, though I'm sure it comes up to some form of fashion. They just wrote it a little bit different. Certainly not, they certainly haven't written it this way for the other folks who are in the same camp, all right? So it's not necessarily unusual, but it is a little on the rarer side, all right? Even for other folks who do get this recommendation. So they said not to let your sensual side may also extend to food in the kitchen there. So not particularly novel. This came up quite a bit for the Capricorn folks. But again, it's not unheard of. But limiting fats, I can't reckon as Pisces body areas are the feet, toes, and the lymphatic system. So unless it's dairy fat they're telling you to limit, I can't quite reckon why they mention it. And I say that because of the Aquarius period, so the Aquarius cusp and everything, kind of dairy fat comes up quite a bit. And I reckon that's too, because it builds up mucus a little bit. And with the lymphatic system, you want that to just be flowing, all right? I recently came over a cold here, and I find that to be true. Got to get those lymph nodes massaged, clear out the sinus, drain it all out. So maybe avoid a little bit of that dairy if you can. Otherwise, they don't really mention any kind of foods for you. And that's a bit of an anomaly. A lot of times the health entry will really drill down on the foods that they recommend for you. They did bring up this cooking aspect here, and so I think when they bring that up, I started thinking about this during the Capricorn period. It must be that you're incorporating fresh ingredients if you're getting into the cooking thing, and so that's where you're picking up your nutrition. And it was all but affirmed but a couple days ago with another entry. Then they finally mentioned that that was part of that baked-in process. So there you go for that. Fresh ingredients baked into the process. Pun notwithstanding that. But that having been said, that's been your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice. Got to move the book once again. Just too many notes coming off the notebook and into the book itself. All right. Listen to others and remain open to their suggestions. All right, you may not always be the best solution to a problem. Learn to back off when necessary, and in your personal life, be more caring and attentive. And remember to relax and have fun as well. All right, pretty succinct advice, I would say. Went over a lot of the stuff that we've already kind of gone over, and that seems to be a little bit of a through line here with the advice as of late. They're being very repetitive with everything. Sometimes saying things in 8 different ways, because maybe ostensibly you need to hear it in one of them to take the point home. But here I would just say, yeah, there was just a nice retread. Valuable all the same, but again, a little bit of a retread there for you. So let's dive into what I had to say about what they had to say. Bear with me, my writing is tiny here in the book, all right? So they said, listen to others. You may not be the best solution to a problem.
And I like this. All this time, yes, we've been looking at you as the miracle cure. Okay, but the reading certainly, and the reading certainly teed that up for us. I would argue. But I'm glad that they brought this up. Having said that, I'm sure you're humble and objective enough to realize this when your sensuous ego massage is finally over, okay? And I'd also say that the earmarks of a good problem solver is also listening to these who know about the subject that you may be ignorant to or, just not experienced with. And so if you're coming off as a know-it-all, hey, that's not a good look either. And it sounded like that was kind of reserved for the personal life once you got off work. So we need to find that dial, why that behavioral shift is in there, and kind of put that out to pasture, if you like. Because that was a bit of a surprising turn of foot there in the breakdown. Was that your behavior changed depending upon your situation? You kind of put professionalism out in the garage with the car, because you couldn't leave it on the curb with the other thing there. Put it back in the front seat there if you like. All right. What else do they have to say here? Learn to back off. All right. I didn't take you to be forceful in so many terms, but it's good advice. All right. You force some things and they break, okay? Those things, they require a little bit more finesse, all right? So know your subject just as well as the best moment to act. And they said you got that in your tool bag, so yeah, maybe pick up that other one, craft it a little bit better. Sometimes we got to work on other things more so than on natural talents. All right, what else do they have here? Reiteration of the things that you're apt to already know. All right, what do we got here? Focus on your personal life, rather, and relax and have fun. A bit of a Capricorn commitment to cause dynamic going on here today. Remember, not everything has to be about work. All right, those folks, they get warnings about burning bridges and ending up alone. Like I said, so be mindful of as much. All right, that's been your advice. So let's turn towards a meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get something to think about. And we're in the bathroom. That's where all the pontificating gets done. That's right. So here we go. In plants as in people, the strongest candidate for survival is often the volunteer. How about that? How about that? The great state of Tennessee, if you like that. Their nickname, the volunteer state. Now, you know what? I don't read the meditation beforehand. And what was I talking about the whole time? That's right. You probably don't believe me, here nor there. I'm just being honest and humble about it. I like this meditation for you. I like it for the day as well, for a whole host of reasons. So, once more, in plants as in people, the strongest candidate for survival is often the volunteer. All right. The volunteer state, Tennessee. I worked in a state nickname. First time I think I've got to do that. That's a passion of mine as well. Anyway, hey, that's your meditation. It's your birthday. I'm not going to throw some spin on it, even though I probably influenced it a little bit, talking about how I talked about certain things in the breakdown. You know what? If I just to dive in further with it, I think it would just mess it up as a meditation for you. So I'm going to leave that with you there. So in any event, meditation in a can, as it were. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror, see where you got the girth and where you're otherwise a little more deflated or atrophied, if you like, within the metaphor. All right, your strengths. Here we go. You're convincing, you're analytic, and you're pragmatic. Interesting. I don't know that I necessarily picked up on analytic. The other ones, though, I think we got it. Though I'm surprised they chose those, quite honestly. All right, any of it. Your strengths haven't been in the can. Let's move on to your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up that objective mirror again, but flip it to the side that blows up your face. Maybe shows off those things you're otherwise a little more superficially insecure about within the metaphor. That's right. Here we go. Your weaknesses. You're hypercritical. Interesting. You're negative. And you're all-knowing. Oh, that one popped back up again, did it not? I didn't foresee that happening. Interesting. You know what? A lot of times we dive into strengths and weaknesses. It's interesting. I like to make a case that our weaknesses can also be strengths. And I say that because one day, a few months back, impulsive popped up as a strength. And then the very next day, for the next individual, boom, it was a weakness. I thought that was very interesting that that dynamic would flip so suddenly on a day so proximal. Where's the disconnect? I think it's just that, for certain individuals, hey, it's done different, all right? But that having been said, I think that weaknesses can also be strengths, just depending upon the situation. But what's needed there is the insight, all right, the ability to see it for what it is and when to use the weaknesses, if you like. That also said, I think if you need to bring those down or improve upon your weaknesses, your strengths are going to help you do it. And here I'm going to try to make a case for myself. Sometimes it don't work out too well. Let's get into it here. You're convincing and you're analytic and you're pragmatic. All right. How are we going to get over being hypercritical, negative, and all-knowing? Well, we're going to get a little bit circular here, if you like, because you're all-knowing, right? But I would say if you're analytic and pragmatic, you're going to approach the problem in a very straightforward, novel fashion. Also down-to-earth fashion, bare bones, getting it done, all emotion in the trunk, or out on the curb more preferably, all right? You're also convincing. Hey, you know what? You know how to talk to yourself about how to figure those things out, I would say. Analytic, again, you're going to assess the problem, all right, and you get down to the nuts and bolts of it. As for your weaknesses being strengths, hypercritical, hey, sometimes we need to, again, assess things, analyze, overanalyze. I say that's a little bit baked into the bargain there with the analytical aspect of it. You might just do so a little bit too much, so you need to pick your moments. And it said you know how to do that in spades, so I'm surprised that didn't come up as a strength. Very surprised. Negative, however, you know what? I know what they're getting at. You're looking at things. They said you got that darkness inside you, a little bit of a dark side there. That must be the negative aspect. But you know what? I think that's important too. A lot of times you got to be able to go to those places and think about the results that could happen that the optimists may not ever be able to put themselves in the position of seeing. All right? And why do I say that? Because you know what? We're getting the whole picture, all right? How can you be analytical if you can't see the whole picture, all right? But that said, too, you know what? Seeing the whole picture also incorporates the optimism now. So don't neglect that or throw that out on the curb or out with the trash itself. All-knowing, hey, you know what? It's not necessarily a good look, but sometimes that's what it takes to convince certain people. You got to play a little bit of a part. Now, for you, it might not be so much a part, but a baked-in ingredient. I don't know what to say. You know what? Like I said, it's a tool in certain circumstances, but it's a bad look otherwise. So, you know what? Know how to work on it. All right? That said, your strengths and your weaknesses having been relayed, I also like to say, we may want to improve upon our weaknesses or maybe ditch them altogether, but I say don't. All right? Keep them a little bit because they make you who you are, all right? They're a part of you, so don't ditch them altogether. That said, those have been your strengths and your weaknesses, so let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is use this as an opportunity to examine our passions or start working toward figuring them out. And I say that because a lot of times I get out in the world and I meet folks and I ask them what they do, more importantly, if they like it, and they don't. All right. But I think it's perfectly understandable because they just getting out of school, got to get into a job to make ends meet. And you know what? They don't have an opportunity to necessarily get after doing something that they like, if they even know what they like. A lot of times it takes time, effort, energy, and work to figure out what we even like, let alone what our passions are. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to not only see who shares your birthday, which can be interesting, see what lottery we drew, if I can pronounce the names, which sometimes I can't, oftentimes I can't. But you know what, maybe that the things that they did can help us just start thinking about carving out some time, all right? Because you know what, it might be nice to be on that corporate track as you're going up the ladder, things get easier, the pay increases, but I would say the fundamental flaw is at the root of it, maybe it's not something we enjoy doing, all right? We might be good at it because we've been doing it so long, but again, is that something you want to be good at? Who's to say? But that's something you got to figure out. So that's why we're here. That's the look at, that's the perspective we're going to do, or we're going to take if you like getting into this. I think you get it. All right, let's get into those born on this day. We start off with Meyer Amschel Rothschild, a German Jewish banker, financier, founder of the most influential investment house. 5 sons ruled Europe financially, it says. William Edward Burghardt de Bois, an African-American historian, sociologist, educator, founder of the NAACP, the Crisis magazine, and also a writer of The Souls of Black Folk. We also have Kazimir Malevich, an influential Russian painter, constructivist designer, and a supremacist, it says, or suprematist. I'm sure those are 2 starkly different things. Suprematist, whatever that may be. All right. Apologies to Mr. Malevich there. Supremacist. All right. Moving on, we have Alan McLeod Cormack, a South African U.S. Nobel Prize winning physicist and responsible for the CAT scan, it says, or at least a part of doing as much there. We also have Karl Jaspers, a German existentialist philosopher. Samuel Pepys, P-E-P-Y-S, Pepys maybe, I'm not quite sure. British 17th century diarist. We also have Hiroshi Namura, Japanese novelist of Zone of Emptiness. We also have Thomas Gallagher, a novelist of The Gathering Darkness. Oh, they said you were dark now, didn't they? That guy wrote about it now, didn't he? All right, now we have William L. Shirer, S-H-I-R-E-R, or Shire, perhaps, a journalist, historian, rise and fall of the Third Reich. All right, here we go. Jiri Menzel, J-I-R-I with the accent, so the names today, I told you as much. All right, a Czech theater film director and responsible for Closely Watched Trains, ostensibly a play or a film. We also have Peter Fonda, the stage and film actor. James L. Halloway III, U.S. Navy Admiral, commanding officer of the first nuclear aircraft carrier. And it was named the USS Enterprise. And we also have Johnny Winter, the blues rock guitarist and singer. Most notably played the Firebird guitar there. We have Regine Crespin, a French opera singer. Victor Fleming, a film director, producer, and replacement director for both The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind in 1939. How about that? That's something to take home with you for sure. We have Eric Kastner, K-A with the dots, the macron, I think, and the S-T-N-E-R. I don't think that's the macron, that's the line. But in any event, German children's author Emil and the Detectives. We also have Elston Howard, baseball player and the first African-American New York Yankee. We also have Fred Biletnikoff, Raiders football wide receiver, 10th all-time in receptions. That's funny. I would have thought that was a Russian gentleman who wrote a book or something. Moving on, another name I'm not going to be able to pronounce, Viktoras Kulvinskas, an alternative nutritionist, and wrote Survival in the 20th Century. And finally, we have Anton Moseman, a Swiss-born British chef and responsible for natural cuisine. And I predicted it, didn't I? I didn't even look at these names today. Sometimes I do once in a blue moon. I got them almost all wrong, didn't I? So let's make up for that on my side of things. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't always work for me. It's not the best tool to be using to sound out names. That's right. Or make assumptions of who these people are. I thought it was a Russian poet or something, and it was a Raiders wide receiver. Or what was it? That's right. Okay. In any event, hey, I know it's a big-ass, tall order to try to take inspiration from somebody else's accomplishments. But you know what? Maybe me just putting the bug in your ear about as much help you start stirring up them fires. Because if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're chasing after a passion, finding something fulfilling in this life outside of just the humdrum everyday goings-ons and going to work and punching a clock, all right? Maybe that is your passion, and if it is, the hat I'm not wearing is off to you, but I think there can be something more, all right? And I'm hoping that for you, all right? So, in the event, that having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is winter, your sign, once again, is Pisces, of the Pisces I period specifically, and your quality and elements is mutable water. Now, what does that mean? Well, that's a whole host of different videos altogether. I'll leave one or two of them at the end of there for you to check out if you're interested in diving in further. But this has been February 23rd, the day of the viable candidate. I can't say that we made any kind of argument for the dirty laundry and the medicine, or the basketball with the laces, or the medicine ball if it was, but here nor there. We incorporated it into the synchronicity story, so there you go. But that said, this has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Just Elphys. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description. Go give them some support, and I argue it will be money well spent on account of this book makes an excellent coffee table book. That's how it came into my life. I had somebody read it to me when I was visiting, and you know what? I didn't think it spoke to me. And it wasn't until they made their case, they changed my perspective. They said, you got to look beyond what it says there. To say that you're a teacher, you just like to explain everything. And I'm like, you know what? That's true. And you know what? I was convinced. And you know what? Maybe you will be too if you're not convinced. All right. You know, it's just about perspective, right? In any event, even if it doesn't agree with you, maybe it agrees with the folks you come over and have for company. And maybe you need a little bit of help getting the ice broken. Hey, you know what? It's going to do so in a literal or figurative fashion, considering its girth and its subject matter. That's right. It's going to get the conversations flowing for better or for worse. So in any event, book having been related, you know, what's important around here, not that. What's important around here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us randomly, we're here to celebrate. I hope you enjoyed yourself, took something of value, even though it wasn't your birthday. You know what? That's what this has been an integral facet in my life, just learning other things. Hey, that's me too. Oh, I can improve upon that, etc. So hopefully you took something away from it, and I hope to see you over on your birthday reading as well. But before I take us out, that's right, let's remember a little something here. I got you pinned in jail. That's right. Get out there. Once you get out, make bail, and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. You know what? Maybe you're put in jail for a reason, all right? Maybe it kept you out of harm's way for a day or two, who's to say. But once again, yeah, if you see, taste, touch, smell, even just a little bit of the magic that's baked in there, I think you understand why I brought it up. So I just want to take a moment to thank you for the pleasure of your time. It's been a privilege to share your birthday with you. I enjoy doing these things for folks, even though sometimes it just takes me some time to get them out there. But once again, thank you very much. And once again, happy birthday. All right. Stay hard out there. Enjoy yourselves. What do you say? Keep being a viable candidate. Don't get too dark on things. And don't go bombast on folks, okay? Just stay humble, and you know what? Life's going to find you, I would say, all right? You're going to take the noble path, all right? So happy birthday. Take care of yourselves.